مهمون امروز من آقای ولید فارس هستن از متخصصین خاورمیانه و مشاور تلویزیون فاکس که برنامه‌اش همیشه دیدید. برای امور خاورمیانه ازشون همیشه دعوت میکنن و محبتی دارند به تمام افرادی که برای آزادی ایران کار میکنن. All right, let's say my guest today is Mr. Phares, Walid Phares, and I think that not only Fox, everybody wants to know about the Middle East has to talk to him. So he was so kind to us that he's very busy, but except that today we talk about the Iran and Middle East. Mr. Phares, thank you very much for your time. I know that you're very busy, sir.
Thank you, Zia, very much for having me on your great show. Thank you.
Thank you. Walid, let's go back to, before we go to Iran, we go to the whole Middle East to see what's happening. My question is that, is it that accidentally that word, America, Europe, free world, changing the governments in name of the nice thing, democracy, then we replace it to the worst government that we can have? 33 years ago, we started from Iran. We took the Shah off 2 years before that revolution happened. BBC, Voice of America, everybody that is dictatorship, is jail or whatever is doing this. Then we replaced it with Khomeini. In that time, Shah and the Iranian government was best friend of America. Then we replaced it with somebody that is enemy of America. This is not going to stop here. Even in Iraq with what they did, what's happening in Iraq. Then we went to another country, same as Iran, Egypt. And we replaced it with a group that years and years we called them terrorist group. Now Syria, killing all the people, and Iranian government with the power trying to chip this government. And where we are heading, can you explain to us where I don't understand it? Is it the world is changing to what? To the war between the religions, between the believers, and bring all the murders to the power, killers to the power? What are we going to end with this?
Well, thank you for this wonderful question. This is actually the question, I'd say, not just of the year, but of the decade. How U.S. policy, and you have been discussing this with many of your great guests, and we discussed it, if you remember, just a few weeks before the Arab Spring on your show. And the summary of it is this. There are forces in the region. Let's take, for instance, the Arab Spring, Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Syria, Yemen, other places. There are forces competing to replace the dominant regimes. And you gave the example of Iran, a very good example. You had the Shah, authoritarian regime, trying to modernize. You had the religious clerics on his other side, and then you had political forces competing to replace him. I don't want to go too much back in time and the details of the Iranian issue. Your audience lived it. But let's take one example from it. The initial push to reform Iran at the time was transformed into a stronger push to bring down the absolute monarchy, and then to replace it initially with reform and democracy. That's how the West understood it then. Then within this vast coalition that was doing this undertaking, you had very radical forces, Islamist fundamentalists, and the companions of the Muslim Brotherhood, but in Iran, the Khomeinist style, that brought down the regime then, and then destroyed every single other partner and established the Islamic Republic of Iran. And there was a referendum. Remember, there was a referendum that they have concocted, and through that referendum, they claimed that they have legitimacy for the decades to come. And then it was very difficult after that to mount an opposition, an Iranian opposition, and Iranian Americans and Iranians knows that. If you look at the Arab world, you'll see that number of these dictatorships or authoritarian regimes, some of them were pro-American, others were pro-Soviet during the Cold War. And then after the Cold War, some of them tried to accommodate the United States, like Gaddafi. and others, such as the Assad regime, is an ally of the Iranian regime. But then you had President Mubarak, Ben Ali, Saleh, who are authoritarian on the inside, accommodate American interest on the outside. So what happened really was that civil societies, as was the case probably with the Iranians then and now, had enough from pressure. They don't have deep ideologies. Civil society moves to accommodate its own lifestyle. They wanted more freedom, more democracy. And what caused it this time in 2011 is the rise of internet, Facebook, YouTube, your kind of shows on the one hand, and two examples that came from the post 9/11 world, which was the Cedars Revolution in Beirut, 1.5 million people rising against Assad and Hezbollah, and then the Green Revolution in Iran in June of 2009. It sent tremendous signals. That revolution, which was not successful though, sent signals to Cairo, to Tunisia, and elsewhere that the youth can do it. So without going too much into the details, as I said, there was this rise of civil society. The first days, if you remember, weeks, I would say, of the Egyptian revolution were led by Facebook people. You know, the Egyptian revolution, Facebook got 85,000 hits in 3 days. And then you have artists, women, middle class, Christian minorities, peasants. But here's the changing moment. The Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamists in this case, stayed behind for a few days to see if the international community is going to stick with Mubarak or accept civil society. It was a very smart move because international community couldn't have, if the Muslim Brotherhood were leading that jihad with burning the flags of America and Israel and nobody would have supported them. But because it was civil society, youth, women, minorities, it got the support. So the Muslim Brotherhood went in, and here is the big problem. The US administration decided to partner with the Muslim Brotherhood. And I'm going to repeat this one more time for us to understand. There was, as you said in the introduction, a policy decision made. It's not that the Brotherhood won on their own. They were recognized, identified, shepherded as partners. And that's the same in Tunisia. That's the same in Libya. That's possibly the same in Yemen, and very possibly the same in Syria. So my question now is, why would the US administration then and again now side with an Islamist, fundamentalist force at the expense not of a dictator, no, of civil society, democracy forces? That's the question of the decade.
Walid, you told me about 2009. And I think that before even the election in here, I put it on my show everywhere, that 2009, millions of Iranian people came to the street and sent a message to Obama. Are you with us or with the Iranian government? Obama and the American government didn't do anything. Yeah. And now, I don't see it that, because you know some people, they say, if Syria fall, Iran will fall. I don't understand it. Who's more important? Syria get the power from where? Who's helping Syria? It's not Iranian. Why you have to go to wait till Syria, you bring down the Syria, then the big government with big money, and you let them to have a more power and everything's influence, even in America. We don't know who's that now with the Iranian government or with us. We don't know. We are not safe even in here, someone like me and you. Why America has to keep the Iranian people in hostage? Because the other country of the Middle East, Iranian government, if they change and become really good government, I mean modern, secular, and have a respect for all the world and believers, I think will help a lot of the countries in the Middle East. Why America doesn't do this?
It is a question of policy made. It's not just we're waiting to see how things are going to move in Iran. There is a policy in this city, in Washington, which has, and I'm going to be very upfront with it, subcontracted U.S. foreign policy in the region from Morocco to Gaza to the Muslim Brotherhood. We're not seeing representatives of civil society. They are women. They are labor union. They are to the left and they are to the right. They are minority. We don't see them in Washington being received at a high level official. Instead, we see the Muslim Brotherhood. We see Nahda. We see all sorts of Islamist intellectuals. We don't see Muslim liberals. We see Muslim Islamists. So it's not about religion. It's really about ideology. And then from Beirut to Syria to Iraq, al-Maliki, to Iran, we see a trend in Washington of engagement with the regime. Now, you ask me, who's behind that engagement? Well, again, the Iranian regime is very shrewd. It knows how to spend, it knows how to invest, it knows how to develop strategies. They do have a pressure group, an interest group, that is lobbying in Brussels and is lobbying in Washington and has sort of convinced the decision makers, without going into names, that eventually we can cut a deal, that America can cut a deal with the Ayatollah's regime. That's a policy issue. So every uprising against the Ayatollah regime is not going to get support, as far as we see right now, by Washington. It's not that Washington doesn't understand. It has made a decision. So the issue is to how to change that decision. How to make Washington, under this administration for the next 4 or maybe 2 years, under the next congressional elections, understand that the Iranian people is not going to accept the Ayatollah regime. That's why it is really upon the Iranians to show it on the one hand. And it's really about the friends of Iran, the free Iran in Washington and in Brussels, to show it through Congress, through the European Parliament, to all the decision makers, that we're not going to accept a deal to be cut with the Ayatollahs at the expense of the Iranian regime. Now, to answer quickly your second point, it is not said that if Syria falls or if the Assad regime would fall, that we're going to see a domino effect all the way going to Tehran. It's not true. It all depends on who's going to be taken over from Assad. If Assad falls, and then you're going to have a Muslim Brotherhood regime in Damascus, we're not doing anything. If Assad falls, and Syria is going to be divided between an area controlled by the Islamists and an area controlled by the Ba'athist or the Alawi, we're not going anywhere. So I am with you on the idea that we need to make a different choice with civil societies everywhere across the board in the Middle East. Yes, if Syria is in trouble, we will side with the secular element, with liberal societies in Syria. If Iran is now witnessing another cycle of uprising, we need to be very clear. We need to tell the executive branch, the president, congressional leaders in Washington, needs to address the Iranian public directly. And if they call this meddling, let it be democratic meddling. Why not? I mean, we addressed the Egyptian people and we told them that we're not going to accept the Mubarak regime. Didn't we do that? We did. Have we sent F-16? No, we don't need. In Iran, the Iranians are not calling on America to meddle physically. They need a position, a clear position, because that is going to send a signal to the majority of bureaucrats in Iran, to the majority of politicians, and tell them that we are standing with the people, not with the regime.
Walid, thank you very much. I want you to give me the promise. At least once a month, give me the half an hour time we talk about this, because, you know, I know that what you're doing, I know that how you're knowledgeable. And we have to get together, the people that are loving the peace from different countries. It's not that Iranian goes fight for themselves, and Egypt goes fight with themselves, or Lebanon goes fight. No. This is a word that all of us will be affected by anything happening in the world. I hope that you have a time. I know that we're very busy. I'm very, very thank you. That I appreciate it that you gave a time to me. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Till next day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my time for today. I love you guys, but I promise that I will have a lot of the people that has the knowledge, and we have the friends. Iranian, they have a friends. We have to be friends with all the nations, with all the people that they love the freedom. If we get together, we can help each other, and we can live in a better life and better world that we are in. Till tomorrow, or no, till another tomorrow. Love you all, and love everybody that loves peace and freedom.
بدانم که در این ایل غریب گر پدر مرد تفنگ پدری هست هنوز، گر پدر مرد تفنگ پدری هست هنوز. گرچه مردان قبیله همگی کشته شدن، توی گهواره چوبی پسری هست هنوز، توی گهواره چوبی پسری هست هنوز، توی گهواره چوبی پسری هست هنوز. نترسی که در غافل ما دل دریای و چشمان تری هست هنوز. آب اگر نیست نترسی که در غافل ما دل دریای و چشمان